I firmly believe that in order to be a good director, you should be able to tell a story that has zero dialogue in it. That you should be able to string along your audience in a gripping story without the need of even hearing a spoken word. The story can unfold in subtle and intelligent visual and audio cues to clearly define their points. In today's entertainment industry, all of those subtleties seem to be falling apart. Exposition is just thrown in our faces like we need someone in the background yelling in our ears. Do you get it, huh? Do you get it? Now, this could be good or bad depending on the audience it is intended to meet. For an audience that just wants to shut off its brain and just be entertained through fun fight scenes and silly dialogue, this may not stick the landing. There are a few directors out there that still appeal to the show don't tell method of film, and one director who avoids exposition and fills his movie with story-based visual and audio cues is Zack Snyder. What if I were to tell you that there's a hidden story in Batman v Superman that was intended to lay the ground to one of Superman's biggest enemies? You probably wouldn't believe me, so I'm just going to show you and let you decide for yourself. In order to uncover this story, we need to delve into 3 separate movies to find the evidence. It is not outright pointed out, we just need to ask the right questions. One gripe of fans for this film is, well, Batman doesn't kill. What if I were to tell you that Batman's bloodlust wasn't because of him or Lex Luthor, but something else programming him? What if I were to tell you that these visions were creating a false narrative in his mind to pit him against Superman to kill him? And what if those visions were set up to lead to one of Superman's villains in future sequels? As we are introduced to this movie, one of the greatest scores put to any film by Hans Zimmer plays in the background. In the intro, we are shown the beginnings to a reoccurring plot point through the entire runtime. These are visions belonging to Bruce Wayne. Bruce is a child and he runs from the funeral of his mother and father who were brutally gunned down in an alley right in front of him. Running haphazardly through the trees, he steps onto some rotted wood and tumbles down into an old well. Landing hard on the ground, he barely has the time to collect himself when he is swarmed by bats, and then slowly carried up out of the well and engulfed in light. And one of the first lines in this film is uttered by Bruce. "In the dream, they took me to the light. A beautiful lie." A beautiful lie. Already, the film establishes that these visions are false, and we are going to see this every single time in every single vision later on. So let's skip ahead to another vision of Batman's. This vision is far ahead in the future. The sign of Darkseid is engraved in the crusted ground of Demolished Planet. Batman and his resistance searches for the weapon that can weaken Superman, the kryptonite he is supposed to be purchasing. But he is betrayed. The resistance puts up a fight, and he is captured with 2 of his fighters. Batman looks up to the ceiling and he hears it, the crackle of the sound barrier being broken. Soon his jailer flies down and lands hard on the sand. A tunnel leading straight to the chained Bat. Superman walks down the hall with the guards kneeling on either side. Then he kills Batman's 2 comrades with fiery beams from his eyes. Batman yells in anguish, and Superman tortures him as well, presumably killing him with a hand in his heart. Batman again is more conditioned to hate Superman and desires his death because of this vision. But did you see it? Did you see the lie in that vision? If you ever ask people where the visions come from, some would say, well, they come from the future, or they come from John Jones to warn Batman about Superman and Darkseid. Both of these are incorrect. There's no evidence to either of these. Movies must obey the rules in the universe in which they are established, and those visions were already established, but Batman wasn't the first one to have them. Superman was in Man of Steel. When Superman surrenders to the Kryptonians that come to Earth, he and Lois are escorted up onto the ship, where Superman's strength begins to wane due to the ship's atmosphere because it resembles Krypton's. Now, it is shortly after that Superman is put into a dreamlike or hypnotic state where he begins to experience visions for himself. Zod tells him how they broke out of the Phantom Zone and began searching for any Kryptonian salvage they can across the universe. They explored a far Kryptonian colony that had failed, and they grabbed the technology from that location. And then he reveals to Superman how he intends to turn Earth into the next Krypton using a world engine, or terraformer, that they picked up on that colony. To do this, all of the Earthlings would perish in the process. Superman sinks and disappears into the sea of skulls of humanity, pleading with an outstretched hand. Even though his father told him to unite Kryptonians and humans, Superman kills Zod because of these visions that showed him the worst possible outcome. Again, something is driving the bloodlust. But how do we know that the vision is false? Because it's actually revealed in Batman v Superman. Superman hears of a disaster in Mexico on television. The disaster happens to be on the celebrated Day of the Dead. He lands with the rescued child and is surrounded by citizens who have come to thank him and hold him up in praise. But if you look at their faces, they wear the paint of skulls, just like the vision he had in Man of Steel, yet it's twisted. So what was the lie that Batman experienced in his vision of the future? It is this. When Superman walks down the hall as a conqueror surrounded by his elite guards, this in fact already happened. But again, it's twisted. Back in Man of Steel, remember when Superman surrendered himself to the US military after they took Lois? He walked down the hall in a military base in chains, surrounded by guards on either side, standing as if dominating him. Notice how it's shot. Notice the choice of colors. It is the exact same shot, but the blue tone is passive. The red tone is fierce, both meant to bring the desired emotion to the viewer. And this is the lie that Batman is being shown, that Superman comes as a conqueror when in actuality he surrendered himself. The lie that stokes his hatred and his bloodlust. What is the source of the bloodlust, and why the hatred towards Kryptonians? Where is it coming from, or from whom? Remember when I said that Snyder likes to put in subtle visual and audio cues? What is the one sound effect that happens every time Batman has a vision? Did you hear that? Where's that noise from? It is the noise of the terraformer. The terraformer that General Zod brought from the dead Kryptonian colony. What if there was something inside that machine? Some entity that desires the death of Kryptonians, that not only pits them against each other, but other species against them as well. What's the evidence? Well, let's look. When Zod and his company land on the dead colony, they closely examine the corpse of a Kryptonian. There is one piece of information that is important to question the cause of death. He's wielding a weapon in both hands. Well, normally you would assume that the terraforming failed and that they died that way, but this is suggesting that they died fighting. What if the terraformer was turned on, and the Kryptonians turned on and killed each other? Then Zod comes along, picks up the tech, and integrates it with his own technology. He then exposes Superman to it through the vision technology, which also turns Superman against Zod, ending his life. But how would Batman be exposed to these visions? It doesn't explain that. Actually, it does. There's a scene in Batman v Superman where Alfred is working on the helmet of Batman, saying there's something wrong with it, that he needs to rewire it. Batman is one of the most technological people on the planet. If the helm were exposed to the entity in the Kryptonian tech, that could absolutely explain where the visions come from. Not to mention, when he is fighting Superman in that helmet, his bloodlust keeps getting stronger and stronger. There's a new kind of mean in him, says one of the Gotham citizens, clearly establishing that Batman was not like this before. He wasn't this bloodthirsty and violent, so something must have happened. Even Alfred notes this in several scenes that there's a change in Bruce, so the movie confirms to us that something is wrong. But that's not all. We can take even more evidence from Justice League. When they are trying to revive Superman, Cyborg interfaces with the Kryptonian technology to reignite the pool. but interfacing may have been a mistake. When Superman is alive in front of the League, suddenly Cyborg's defenses wake up and attempt to kill Superman, stating at the time, "It is stronger since I interfaced with the ship." Again, something in the Kryptonian tech is trying to kill a Kryptonian. There's one vision left for Batman. Where's the lie in it? Does it exist? Yes. This is my favorite vision. It describes the last fight between Batman and Superman. Bruce finally steps into his parents' crypt, looking over the stone slab encasing his mother's casket. The stone bleeds. The name Martha shattered, and from it comes the beast, the bat, known as the Spirit of Vengeance. In the vision, the bat consumes the man. Vengeance consumes Bruce. The man is gone. All that is left is the bat. This is where Batman would kill Superman. But in this moment is Batman. His cowl is shattered right down the middle. On one half is Batman, on the other half is Bruce Wayne. The voice modulator is struggling and warping back and forth between the Batman and the man. It's at this moment that if he gives in to his bloodlust and caves, the human will be gone, and all that is left is vengeance. He calls Superman not even human, and Superman cries out to save Martha. Confused, he needed to know who that was, and Lois tells him it is his mother. Batman stops. He's more human than he was led to believe, that he is more like him than he thought. And this is what breaks him out of his bloodlust. It's what breaks him out of his programming. You can see the very moment that he breaks free, and it's powerful, not done through exposition, but merely acting. By the way, the music playing in the background is titled A Beautiful Lie. He believed he was the one in the light, being raised up into the light. A lie, all of it. To a lot of people who say that Batman was not done well in this movie, I strongly disagree. This movie showed Batman going through an arc. He lost everything. Robin, Wayne Manor. He was vulnerable at this point. Lex Luthor was playing him, and on top of that, his mind was invaded and suffered from false visions that instilled a bloodlust, causing him to be more violent and cruel. He branded criminals, and this was the visual sign of his brutality and fall further into the darkness. And at the very end, when he was about to take the life of an innocent, he stayed his hand. He looked past all the lies that he had been fed for so long and acknowledged the humanity and beat back the bloodlust that was driving him. We see this growth visually when in the final scene, instead of Batman branding Lex Luthor, he brands the wall instead. So, what villain do I think they were setting up for a Superman sequel? Well, there are two technological villains that come to mind that it could be. It could either be Brainiac, or it could be this guy, the Eradicator. After the release of Batman v Superman, there was a TV series called Krypton. The main villain was Brainiac, and they did him pretty well. Now I bring this up because sometimes studios will do tests with characters to gather viewers' feedback. And the second possibility is the Eradicator. Let me read to you this and see if it sounds familiar. In the distant past, a dying alien race creates a number of containment devices in which to preserve their culture. They send them into space with contact teams intent on meeting other civilizations. When a small group of these aliens arrive on the planet Krypton, they are met by the militant Chem-L, who kills them and corrupts one of the devices. Its new mission to preserve the ideology of Kryptonian culture by eradicating all others. And thus the device becomes known as the Eradicator. On Krypton, the Eradicator does all it can over the years to protect Kryptonians, even from themselves. When a group of Kryptonian explorers leave Krypton in search of a new planet to colonize, the Eradicator alters their birthing matrices and makes them fatally allergic to lead, thus creating Daxamites. To further ensure that nobody left Krypton, the Eradicator alters Kryptonians by encoding them a genetic defect so that they will instantly perish if they leave their world. To me, this could easily be the entity in the terraforming machine that took over Zod's tech, thus causing Superman to turn against other Kryptonians, even though it was against his father's wishes. Then it invaded Batman's cowl, causing Batman to also experience corrupt visions, also coaxing him to turn against Kryptonians. Finally, in a last-ditch effort, entering Cyborg when he interfaced with the tech to once more attempt to kill off Superman. Now, people might assume, but no, the one behind it was Steppenwolf. He was the one in league with Lex Luthor Jr. At first I thought this as well, but Steppenwolf was unaware of the Superman's rebirth. Therefore, there's another intelligence in there. I gotta say straight up, I love this movie. I understand it's not perfect, and unfortunately its biggest issue is how it's marketed. When I really want to see a movie, I will not read anything about it beforehand. I will not watch trailers. I will go into the movie with a fresh outlook. So when I was watching this movie and I saw the slender, dark-haired woman who stole something from Bruce, the first thing you think of, oh, that must be Catwoman. And it was even more exciting for me to find out that it was Wonder Woman. When I first saw Wonder Woman going through the footage of the Justice League, I got even more excited. When I first saw Doomsday, my first thoughts were, okay, it seems a little early for him. But since then, I have thought through it, and I completely understand why they did it. I'm actually 100% behind that decision. I'm going to explain why shortly. But then I heard from people, oh yeah, they revealed Wonder Woman and Doomsday early in trailers, and they had screenshots of the Justice League, all before the movie was even released. Why? Why would they do things like that? That's horrible marketing. You don't expose things like that. You let it come out naturally, and it would have been a better first impression on you if you saw the way it was supposed to unfold. Had I seen Doomsday in the trailer, I would have immediately known how the story was going to go. It's just common sense, so I'm really sorry for the people that experience was ruined for them because of how this terrible marketing came out. Listen, first impressions mean everything to a movie. If you don't land that first impression, it's not going to be remembered fondly. Anyways, here's the reason I think that Doomsday was necessary for this movie. It just makes the most sense. When you have Doomsday, everyone knows how it's going to end. It is probably one of Superman's most famous historical events that happens in comics. And that level of predictability is not a good thing to have hanging over it. When Doomsday is in a movie, everyone knows that Superman is going to die, so the sooner you get that out of the way, the sooner you can actually have unpredictable stories in the future. You will never know Superman's fate going forward. On top of that, some of Superman's greatest stories came after Doomsday. Now, from a story standpoint, Doomsday actually brings to a close our three main characters, Batman, Superman, and Lex Luthor. For Batman, one of his most fearsome lines and driving narrative was, he has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe that there's even 1% chance that he is our enemy, then we need to take it with an absolute certainty. Doomsday is what Batman feared Superman would be. He has that 1% chance, all that power to wipe out the human race with no morality to back it. And Batman's programming led him to almost the extinction of the human race, which is why he sees his faults in Justice League. For Superman, the entirety of the movie is about being accepted by the human race. Lex Luthor is controlling portions of the media and the government, turning people against him, creating fake events to make Superman out to be the villain. It is the most natural story that could be told after Superman appears in Man of Steel. And this is exactly how the world would and does act. So the only real way to convince humanity that he is on their side and is one of them is by dying for them. Again, Doomsday is the best answer to this. For Lex Luthor Jr., Lex had everything. He had wealth, he had intelligence, he was one of the most powerful people on the planet. He had pull in both the media and the government. And then what happens? Superman shows up. All of a sudden, all of his power, it looks like nothing. He's nothing compared to Superman. So what does he do? He does tons of research to see if other people exist like Superman, and he finds metas. It was so bizarre for me for people to be like, oh, Batman should have found out those things. He's the detective after all. No, Lex Luthor searching for metas was the result of him seeing the existence of Superman and wondering if there were others like him. As a result, he becomes more angry and jealous and hate-filled because of how meaningless his power is now. This makes him go out and create Doomsday. It's his display of power. Like I said, Doomsday ties up all three of those character stories, and I could not imagine this story being written any other way. Which leads me into the flaws of this film. Other than being poorly marketed and exposing too much, creating a massive hype that led to nothing left in the film to be revealed, DC has some of the most iconic characters in entertainment. Iconic DC means that it is what fans love about your characters. When you change your characters to try and find something new, you are potentially taking away what fans love. It's why Batman fans do not want Batman to kill. It's why fans want Superman to be a Boy Scout, even though I say he is, even in these films. And it's why fans would rather have intimidating and commanding presence Lex Luthor than the Lex Luthor Jr. that we got. And Doomsday has a very iconic design that this movie really missed the mark on. There's one final thing I want to talk about before I wrap up this long rant. For many years I've been saying that Rotten Tomatoes is a corrupt and biased website, and it's only coming to light now in 2019 and 2020 that there's a bias there to Disney movies and a lot of woke political overcorrectness entertainment. And our movie industry is suffering as a whole. Warner Brothers and DC unfortunately bore the brunt of this, and this is the reason I am making this video. This movie did not deserve to be as trashed as hard as it was. In most ways, it was much more deeper story than most other movies similar to it at the time. It was shot better, and it had a deep underlying story that treated the viewers with respect, expecting you to pay attention to the little details as if you were intelligent or something, instead of throwing exposition in your face. Now I want you to look at this article. Notice the date on it, February 17, 2016. Warner Brothers sold a majority of their shares of Rotten Tomatoes just 1 month before Batman v Superman was released. Rotten Tomatoes tore this movie to shreds. It is one of the most influencing sites for critics, and people were just now seeing what they really are, deleting reviews from audiences, pushing their politics. Not long after that, DC caved in and also jumped in on the political bandwagon. What else could they do? These critics were panning their material, telling them that wasn't what the populace wanted, telling our movie studios we should all think like Disney and we should want what Disney is selling. As a result, they changed Suicide Squad and Justice League. I would have loved to have seen those movies as they were intended. And it's ironic. This movie is about Lex using the media and the government to drown Superman through falsehoods, to make them believe in their minds that he was a threat, and here the exact same thing is happening in reality. I hope you look at this movie in a new light and maybe give DC another chance. Maybe we can convince them to go back to just being entertainment with their fictional world of characters that we love. Anyways, thanks for watching, folks.